Illinois, 2001, 2002, another newcomer, and it just keeps going. 2008, 2009, 2010. It's hard to look at data like this and not think that there's some problem here. And I can't say local food production is the only solution or way to address this. It's a very complex problem with probably lots of causes and not fully understood. But the point is, it needs attention, and I think planners need to turn attention to this issue of obesity. And I think in looking at food, there's an important role. So why focus on food? Cities and agriculture are very much tied together. Food production has costs, industrial food production, and these big issues of health. We'll also be talking about economic development more, and so I'll leave that. Well, what can planners do about issues of food? We're going to be looking at detail at a number of issues, but sort of generally as an orientation to that, I can say one thing we could do is to begin paying attention. A study in 2000 looked at, well, reasons planners gave for not looking at food issues. It's not our turf, not an urban issue. We just talked about the relationship with industrial agriculture, cities. It's driven by a market. Lots of things are driven by markets, but there's also market imperfections that need adjustment, very much what the planners really focus on, externalities and so forth. The system's not broken. Well, that's a big question, right? We certainly know that there's some health issues that need to be addressed. Who can work with me? I don't know about food systems. Well, these are things we can do something about. We can know something about food systems, and I think that's why you're here. So we can do something to try to understand urban food systems. And I think it is important to think of the entire food system, even though we're here today to talk in particular about food production. It's important to put it within the context of urban food systems. This is a nice graphic put together. I think it was some students maybe in Arizona who put this together. I just thought it was a nice illustration of how food production, distribution, acquisition, and consumption are tied together, and that there's waste produced at all of these points. There are inputs into the system, and there are outputs, and all of them need to be managed, and all of them involve cities. They involve movement of goods and services. They involve labor. They involve employment. They involve all the things that we work on. And I think planners have roles at many different stages, but when we particularly start talking about local food production, one of the things that's happening is we're tying together the consumption, acquisition, distribution, production in a smaller proximity. And so we need to find ways to think about all those together as we're talking about local production. What can planners do in understanding local food production itself? Well, what do we mean by urban agriculture? Growing plants and animals in and around cities. And what this means is that these activities are integrated into the ecological systems of cities and the economic systems of cities. And there can be many reasons for doing this. It can be to create employment. It can be to create a resilient community that's able to deal with crises in the future. It can be to shape urban climate. It can be therapy for people, subsistence, education. There are lots of different reasons. And different kinds of urban agriculture may be appropriate depending on different goals. So there's different products that may be produced, different scales and technologies, all within urban areas. Some involve marketing, some no marketing, and it can be on public property, private property, a lot of different kinds of places. So because there's such a range of activities that are considered urban agriculture, well, we have to be able to plan for and think about an awful lot of different kinds of things and purposes that exist. So at a smaller scale, we might think of micro farming in and around the house or household. So most of us probably have tomato plants growing in our backyard or on our patio, doing some form of micro farming. What does it take to make those things happen and useful? And it can sometimes happen in rooftop gardening. Actually, I tried this system on our rooftop, or part of our rooftop, for some period until the roof started leaking in the neighbors below. And that's gone, unfortunately. And it never looked quite as lush as this picture. But rooftop gardening, which has really been a focus here in Chicago, and subsidies in Canada, some major subsidies for rooftop gardening. We can talk about community gardening, where communities come together and create gardens. And community gardening can be such that individuals have their own little section within a community garden that they take care of, and maybe they benefit and eat produce created there, or it could be a shared experience where everybody takes care of it. Community gardening may be for food, it may also be for creating an attractive place as well. Building community, getting people to work together. We can also think about institutional urban agriculture, where schools use it as a way to learn about food, to get children's hands dirty, to understand where food comes from. Many of you know about the North Lawndale Climate Network and Sweet Beginnings and bee farming, and economic development tool in producing food. It can be used for therapy in institutions, or to support in institutions. An old mental hospital model from the old state model used to be that it was therapy in and of itself to grow food, but it was also how you put food on the table in the state institutions. We can also talk about commercial horticulture, which is really sort of small-scale commercial horticulture. And we might forget about how common this really is in other parts of the world, and there are places where really some of the best quality food, vegetables and so forth, are really coming as a result of this, right? Where it's, the high quality vegetables and so forth really aren't otherwise available, playing a very important niche in providing food. And same thing true with livestock and fisheries and so forth. There can be urban agriculture in particular niches, such as ornamental flowers and herbs and mushrooms and so forth, that can fill a particular niche, can be good for economic development, income for groups. And then we tend not to think about urban agriculture and large-scale operations, but there can be large-scale operations. They tend to be more on the periphery of urban areas, but can still be in urban areas. How can they be protected? How can these activities be supported in some ways? And you've heard of some of these multifunctional farms that really try to tie consumers into what's happening on the farm, get them out there to make community-supported agriculture, and so forth. So these wide range of different kinds of activities. So what's the future of urban agriculture? I'm not recommending this, pulled off the internet, an image of something, but the point is that we need to think sort of creatively about what might be happening in the future, and where and how urban agriculture might take place, and what might happen. Well, very briefly, as planners, we have a lot of tools that are standard tools that are available to us. And I'm not going to go through all of them, but just to remind us that we do have quite a wide range of tools available in our profession. And it's those tools we're going to begin talking about today and thinking about how they tie into urban agriculture. So there are regulatory mechanisms of zoning, of subdivision ordinances, sign ordinances, tree ordinances, and so forth. The government's able to actually provide services in one way or another, sometimes in the form of food or compost or whatever it may be. That there can be redistribution, direct redistribution of food, redistribution of income, education, about how to behave and so forth. And so our challenge today is really to think, very broadly about what are the needs, what does it take to allow for local production of food to take place, to see whether it can play a role in addressing some of these severe problems of obesity and other issues. And so that's what we've been looking at.